OnePlus used to make the original flagship killers, but these days they've transitioned into full-blown flagship territory, and that in turn has left a void, one that Realme's been more than happy to fill, at least for this year. Meet the GT2 Pro, a solid flagship phone that's priced real aggressively. Now, are there major trade-offs Realme had to make to hit these aggressive price points? How does this GT2 Pro compare when pit against the OnePlus 10 Pro, its current flagship? Now, this is what we aim to find out in today's video. My name's Ash, you're watching C4E Tech, and if you do end up liking what you see here, thumbs up, subscribe, turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Let's get started. So first, let's start with the actual in-hand feel. Smooth glass backs for premium phones. Now that's the industry standard. And both OnePlus and Realme have kind of made their own tweaks on the standard. With the GT2 Pro, they've gone for a biopolymer back made out of biological raw materials like fallen leaves and pulp. Of course, if you want standard glass, that's available too with the blue and black variants. But with the green and more importantly, this white, and I say more importantly because this is the variant I have managed to experience, and is the one that I'm going to talk about throughout this video. The finish seems very well done. Unlike your traditional smooth glass, this has a bit of a texture to it, one that's also on the box and the stock wallpaper, so good attention to detail from Realme. Now, I said both brands have made their own tweaks, right? So let's now talk about OnePlus. With the 10 Pro, we get Gorilla Glass 5, but they've used some microcrystals for this glittery look, and it also feels, well, it's a little hard to describe. Let's just say it feels a little rough. I mean, I wouldn't say rough. Maybe not too smooth. Now remember, with the OnePlus One, with that white finish, it was supposed to feel like baby skin. This is kind of the opposite. A slight texture, if I may. It still is smooth and slippery nonetheless. So grip is one area where the GT2 Pro most definitely has an edge. Now given both phones have the same display size, the overall footprint is also very similar. It's worth noting that the display, it curves at the edges on the OnePlus 10 Pro, while it remains flat on the GT2 Pro. This means the width is slightly lesser, but then again, Realme's phone happens to be slightly slimmer. And given the biopolymer back, it's also a little over 10 grams lighter. Now, I love what OnePlus has done with the 10 Pro. The shimmering back is unique, the ceramic camera array is nice, the phone feels great in hand, but if I had to choose between these two, gun to my head, personally, I prefer the lighter and grippier GT2 Pro. But then again, this is a very personal preference, so you're gonna have to take the final call on what suits you best. Now, since we touched upon displays for a bit, let's do that next. Like I said, both phones have 6.7-inch panels, both are Quad HD+, so equally sharp at 525 pixels per inch. The tech is the same, they're both covered by Corning's Gorilla Glass Victus, they have high refresh rates, it's an AMOLED panel with 2nd gen LTPO, meaning refresh rates can vary from 1 to 120 Hz depending on what's happening at any moment. The theoretical peak brightness differs a little with the GT2 Pro edging ahead, but for practical usage, that's not gonna make much of a difference. What is going to make a huge difference though is where you stand on curved displays. If you find the edge curves premium, the slight narrowness it brings with it, comfortable, love how everything seems to neatly fall off the screen, then the OnePlus 10 Pro's display is definitely going to be better for you. But if you are someone who prefers flat panels and find the reflections on curved edges to be very distracting, then the GT2 Pro is going to be far better for you. Now when it comes to what's under the hood, it's identical. Both phones are powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, the current 4nm flagship SoC from Qualcomm. They're paired with 8 or 12 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM and 128, 256 or 512 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage. Both have support for RAM expansion where you can use some of that fast storage as RAM. As far as software goes, we have custom interfaces built atop Android 12, Oxygen OS 12.1 on the OnePlus 10 Pro, Realme UI 3 on the Realme GT2 Pro. They're both stable and full of features, and given their Oppo associations, they share a lot in common. There's the occasional difference, but for the most part, what you want to do on one, you can most definitely do on the other. Realme does come with a lot more bloat out of the box, but thankfully most of that can be uninstalled. So from a performance perspective, don't expect any differences here. When pit head-to-head in a throttle test, Realme did hold a slight edge. Their Diamond Ice Core cooling system seems to be doing well, but for all intents and purposes, both phones fly through anything thrown at them. Even with intense tasks like gaming, not a lot between them. Beat it up once again, we have more similarities with dedicated game modes, stereo speaker setups, etc. The output is pretty much the same here. Have a listen. Now the similarities continue with the placements, lack of headphone jacks or support for micro SD, and the battery capacities. Both phones have 5000 mAh units to keep things up and running, There's no noticeable difference in battery life. Both can get you through a day of moderate use on a single charge with little to no issues. When it's time to charge, we can use the fast chargers that they come bundled with. 80 watts on the OnePlus 10 Pro to go to full charge in just about 31 minutes. 65 watts on the GT2 Pro, which is going to take you a couple of minutes more. But if you live in North America, the OnePlus 10 Pro, it only ships with a 65 watt charger, and that's a little slower. It is supposed to get you to full charge in 42 minutes. Now, here is where the 10 Pro has something that the GT2 Pro doesn't. Fast wireless charging. The 10 Pro can do 50 watt AirVook and also reverse wireless, not an option on the Realme. It also has that alert slider to quickly switch between profiles, and if you're in the USA, getting this phone from T-Mobile will get you IP68 water and dust resistance, no IP rating in any other case. Now the major difference between both phones, it's got to be the cameras. We have triple camera setups on both. With the primary on the OnePlus 10 Pro, it's a 48 megapixel Sony IMX789 paired with an optically stabilized f1.8 lens. Whereas on the GT2 Pro, it's a Sony IMX766, a 50 megapixel sensor, which also happens to be paired with an optically stabilized f1.8. As you can see, they both perform well, but this is a comparison video, meaning we are going to zoom in and nitpick. The biggest difference I noticed was with the dynamic range, where the details and the highlights are similar. OnePlus does seem to do a better job with the darker parts. Not a huge difference, but it is one nonetheless. Now under low light, this I found very surprising. The GT2 Pro actually fared better. Now there is no reason for it to fare better because the software is similar, the lens and even the ISP are the same, the resolution difference is negligible, and the OnePlus 10 Pro does have the larger sensor. But for whatever reason, the GT2 Pro does manage to do better. With the secondary camera, they both have the Samsung JN1, a 50 megapixel f2.2, the one with the 150 degree field of view. But this time around, OnePlus comes back with a slight edge with range, just like we saw with the primary under good light. Now the third camera is a totally different. While OnePlus has a 8 megapixel 3x telephoto setup, Realme's gone with a 3 megapixel microscope. While it's cool and all, to me the telephoto is most definitely the better setup. This is what I had to say in my earlier GT2 Pro video. Now this third camera I'm not a huge fan of. They've gone with a microscope here. It's surrounded by these two flashes so you can get pictures like this. Well, it's all fun and games. It's good for the novelty factor. Once it wears off, I don't really see any good use case scenarios. You know, it's great for clickbait. You can go ahead with first phone with microscope, fire. But past that, I don't really see an actual use case for it. So I would have much rather preferred they go with an actual telephoto camera. It's a flagship, you're marketing it as a flagship. It's got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. It doesn't have a headphone jack. If that doesn't scream flagship, what else does? The fact that they've gone with this instead of, I'm not even asking for a periscope zoom, even a regular old 3x optical would have been a better choice. At least that's what I feel. Other points to note, given the association with Hasselblad, OnePlus gets the expand mode 65 by 24, and both phones can do 8K 24, but it's only the OnePlus 10 Pro that can do 4K 120. With selfies, again, similar 32 megapixel sensors with f2.4 lenses. They do process images differently, leading to some difference in skin tones, but for the most part, they perform equally well. So overall, with cameras, well, yes, there are times where the GT2 Pro does manage to pull ahead. 4K 120 FPS, and most importantly, the telephoto makes the OnePlus 10 Pro the better phone if camera is a priority. So far, we've seen two phones that are pretty evenly matched. Now, there is one area where they really aren't, and that would be price. The OnePlus 10 Pro costs about 20 to 30% more in most markets. Now, what do you get for that extra money? Wireless charging, faster wired charging, in most markets at least, the alert slider, a curved display, the telephoto camera, 4K 120 FPS. Now the question you need to ask yourself is that worth the extra asking price for me? If you think it is, then the 10 Pro is going to be the better option for you. To me personally, I like my OnePlus 10 Pro. I like it a lot, don't get me wrong, but given the price to performance on offer, it's hard to ignore the GT2 Pro. If I had to choose between these two, I'm going to go with the GT2 Pro. But what about you? What would you choose? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And beat it up while you're down there. If you are watching this video from a market where the phone you want to pick up isn't available, check out 28mobile.com. I'll leave a link in the description below. They are pretty quick, professional, and ship to most countries. Also, down in the description, you'll find a link to Red Wolf if you want to pick up some C4 Tech merch like this. If you want to support me and get yourself some cool merch while doing so, check it out. And that's pretty much it for today's comparison video, guys. Thumbs up, thumbs down, based on whatever you felt about it. Subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that bell icon if you haven't yet. And thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4 Retech, and I'm signing off for now. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.